In today's lecture, we'll be talking about myths and legends, and we'll talk a little bit about the circles of awareness, who the storyteller decides to bring into the story and how they bring them in. But first, we'll start with the story. In Judaism, there are three types of knowledge that we study to truly understand the religion. First comes from the Torah, which is the written laws and practices of Judaism. Second comes the Talmud, which is the rabbinical interpretation, debates, and arguments about what was written in the Torah. And third is the Zohar, the mystical text that helps us understand the existence of God and what it means to be alive and nature itself. Now, most of us learn a little bit of the Torah. Some of us dabble a bit with the Talmud, but not many of us dive deep into the Zohar. And it's said that if you have a mastery of the Torah and the Talmud, you can really experience the Zohar and really start to get a sense of what it means to exist in this world. This is the legend of four rabbis who attempted to master these texts and enter into the divine realm. Once, somewhere on a plane of existence between here and the heavens, four rabbis got together and they began to study and study and study. Their names were Ben Azai, Ben Zoma, Elisha ben Abuya, and Rabbi Akiva. Days, weeks, months, years passed, yet the men did not eat or drink or sleep. They merely studied and debated. And through that committed study, all of a sudden the men ascended to heaven. There they stood witness to God in all of his divine glory. Ben Azai witnessed the divinity and immediately died. So awesome was the sight of the holy. Ben Zoma could not rightly comprehend what he was seeing and lost his mind. Elisha ben Abuya saw and he understood. He knew that God had left the humans to their own devices, so he left alone all thoughts of heaven and God and returned to earth to focus on earthly matters. Rabbi Akiva also saw and understood. He knew that God guided each being and object from within. To understand the self, one must understand the will of the divine. So that was a legend. Legends typically tend to revolve around real people or real events, but they're expanded upon and there's story elements added to them. So we know that they might not be factual. Maybe they are. I don't know. Maybe they actually went up to heaven. Who knows? But the facts don't really matter as much as the way that those characters represent certain cultural values. And that's true of all myths. All myths are going to get across the values that a culture holds near and dear. And so when we're telling a myth or a legend from a specific culture, if it's a culture that we belong to, we should of course acknowledge that and help people recognize that these are cultural myths that we value and that have value for us and that we think will other people will find value in as well. But if we're telling a myth or a legend from a culture that is not our own, that's fine, but we have to respect and acknowledge the culture that created that myth or created that legend, and we have to pay homage to it. So as you are planning on telling a myth or a legend, it's really important to make sure that you understand what other traditions might go along with the performance of those myths and legends, and ensure that you're getting across those cultural values, not the things that you might want to get across from the story. Now let's move into some storytelling techniques. One of the tools that I think is really useful is to think about the circles of awareness that we have as a storyteller. So when we're telling, we can think of four distinct circles of awareness. In the first circle, we're really just focused on ourselves. Storytellers don't use this that much because we want to connect to the audience, but maybe there's a moment where we're thinking to ourselves, we're collecting our thoughts, and then we go into the performance. That might be a moment within the first circle, but it's intentional. It's not like I accidentally forgot my line or forgot what was coming next. The second through the fourth circles are going to be more relevant for most storytellers. So in the second circle, that is where you are completely within the world of the story. Right now I'm looking at my audience, virtually of course, but I'm looking at them. If I was in the world of the story, I would be speaking to the other characters, right? So like when we saw the rabbis kind of talking and arguing with each other, that was in the second circle, totally within the realm of the story. The third circle